Hello guys, welcome to the next session of developing e-commerce application from scratch using Angular and Spring Boot. In the last session we discussed on how we can create one API to add the product details. So if you see, like, this is the 7 numbers session, and in which we have seen how we can create a controller, then service, and then repository for the product, and also we have created one API to add the product details into a database. Now in this session what we are going to do is we are going to implement one Angular form so that we can accept these product details from the admin, and then we can save these details into our DB. So let me first of all show you what is the exact API that we have already created. So my backend application is already in running state. So let me just it's not like, let me just click on the run button, and let me just wait till my application starts. And now my application is in the running state. Let me just come to the Postman, and let me just show you the API. So if you see, these /add new product is the API that we have created, and also we have to give this product name, product description, product discounted price, and product actual price as an input. And let me just click on send. But before that, make sure this is the post operation, so we have to select a post from this drop down. Now let me just click on send, and let's see what happens. And if you see, like, we got the response. In response we got all the details that we have saved. Alongside we got the product ID as well. So as this is the very first product that we have added, so we have received ID as equals ID is a 1. So this ID is basically generated by the database itself. It is not provided by me. So SQL or MySQL is responsible to generate this product ID, so we don't have to worry about this. So this same API we have to call from our UI as well. But to call this API, first of all we have to collect the data from the admin, and to collect the data from the admin we have to create one form. So let's see how we can create the form and how we can take these details from the admin. So let me just go to the Google Chrome first, and let me just click on login. Let me just use admin's user ID and password. So admin123 and admin@pass, and let me just click on login. Now if you are wondering, like, how I'm using these credentials, like if you want to find out where you will find the credentials, so you can just go to the IntelliJ or whichever IDE you are using, and then you can just go under this src, then main java, and then you can just go to the service. And if you see, we have one class which is user service. If you just double click on these, so you will be able to see, like, we have one method that is init role and a user. So over here we are just creating one default admin credential, so admin123 and admin@pass. Similarly we are creating one a user credential, that is a raj123 and raj@123, which is a password for the Raj. So whenever you will run the application, by default it will create these two different users. So among those two, one will be the admin and one will be the normal user. So that's the reason I can directly use these credentials on my UI directly. So now if you see, when I use admin's credential, I come to this page which is a /admin, and I am able to see one message like you are admin. Now what we are going to do is, on this page only we are going to create one form. So obviously we have previously also seen that in the form what we are going to do is, there are two different sections that we have to take care. First one will be a normal text kind of information that we will collect from the admin, and also we have to take care about the images. So we are going to take images as an input from the admin so that we can show it as a product images. But as of now we are not going to take care of images. As of now we are just going to take care of these text information. First of all we will just take care of this text information, and then we will see how we can use the API, or how we can modify the API to take care of the images as well. So first of all let's see how we can do the form. So over here what I'm going to do is, I'm going to add one more extra navigation bar over here at the top. And at the top we will show the different options like home, then add new products. Basically that will act as a navigation bar, or we can say that we will provide links to the different components with the help of that navigation bar. So we can just do that very quickly, and then we can also we have to make sure that we are giving the proper constraints, because whatever we will be adding on the navigation bar, we have to make sure that those specific links are accessible to the admin only, and some specific links are accessible to the user only. So admin and user specific links, we have to also add the constraints on those links. So let's see one by one how we can do this. So let me first of all go to the VS Code, and over here let me just open one file which is called as a header component. Inside this header, let me just open this header.component.html. Now inside this file you will see like we have previously added one mat toolbar. Now similarly we have to add one more mat toolbar, but before that, if you see, like there is some code which is in a comment which we have already commented. So let me just remove those comments because we are not going to use that code anymore. And now let me just add a mat toolbar again. So let me just add mat toolbar like this, and now let me just save it. Let me just go to the Google Chrome, and let's see whether the changes are reflected or not. And yes, the changes are reflected. Now we have to apply the color as well. So we have to apply the primary color. So let me just apply color is equals to primary. So let me just apply color is equals to primary like this. And now if you just go to the Google Chrome, you will see this navigation bar is added. On this navigation bar, we have to add different links. So let me just quickly add those different links. So let me just add inside this navigation bar, let me just add one button, and let me just give it as a home button. That home button will nothing but a mat raised button. So let me just add mat raised button like this. Now if you are wondering like how I know these classes and all, so basically this is nothing but a practice. So I have used Angular material library for many different projects, so that's why I know some of the classes. But if you are using this first time, or if you are not much aware about this, what you can just do is you can just go to the Angular material UI library official website, which is material.angular.io, and then on that you will be able to find the different components such as button. So if you see, you can just click on button, and if you see like inside the overview, you will find the multiple examples of it. So I'm using this mat raised button. If you just click on the view code option, then you will be able to see like which class you have to apply exactly. So for raised, we have to apply this class which is mat raised button, and if you want to give the color, we have to apply the color is equals to primary. So in this way we have to use it. Obviously we have previously used these buttons inside our projects, so that's the reason we haven't implemented or haven't imported the module. But if you are using this for very first time, then we have to make sure that we are importing the module like importing the required module inside our projects. So if you are using for the very first time, make sure you are importing these mat button module inside your app.module.ts file. So if you see inside my app.module.ts file, we have already imported these mat button module, and inside my imports array as well, we are able to see this mat button module. So in similar way, we have to do this step for very first time. Now let me just apply a color is equals to primary again like this, and let me just save this. Let me see on Google what happened. And if you see, we are able to see this home button. Similarly, we have to add one more button. So let me just copy the same, and let me just paste, and let me just give the button text as add new product like this. And now let me just save this. Let me just come back to the Chrome, and yes, our button is added. Now if you just click on this button, nothing is happening. So we have to make sure that when we click on the home button, we redirect it to the home page, and when we click on the add a new product button, then also we have to create one new component so that we can design that form and everything. So let me just first of all take care of this home. So what we have to do is we have to just add a router link is equals to slash, and let me just save this. Now if you are wondering how I'm just using this slash, so if you just go to the file which is app routing module ts, Now if you see, like we have already configured a path for our home component. So for the home component, we don't have to specify a path, we have to keep this as a empty, and whenever we want to use that home component router with the router link, then we have to just give a slash, so that will be a empty slash like this. And now let me just save this code. Let me just come back to the Google Chrome, and let's see, when I click on home button, what happens. So when I click on the home button, so we are redirected to the, this is the home page. Now over here we have to create one new component for this add a new product. So let me just open my terminal, and let me just stop my current execution of application, and now let me just create one new component, that is ngGC, and let me just give the name as add new product like this. And now if you see, the command that I am running is npm run ngGC, so ngGC, and we have to give the component name that we want to create. But in some cases, like on your machine, you can just try with only running the ngGC command. We don't need to prefix it with the npm run. On my machine, I have to just use it as a npm run as a prefix, but it might not the case for you as well. So let me just hit the enter. Let me wait till my component is created, and yes, my component is created. And now what we can just do is, we can just go to the app routing module ts file, and now we have to specify a path for my new component. So path, and that path will be a add new product like this, and component will be a add new product component. And let me just give the comma for line number 16. And now let me just copy this path name. And now if you see, like previously we have used this auth guard and everything, but as of now I'm just not going to use this auth guard, and I'm just not going to specify the roles, because as of now we are just developing this, and we don't want to make it much complex as of now. So let me keep it as it is, and after some time we will apply the proper roles and proper guard as well. So let me just save this code, save this file, app routing module ts. Let me just come back to the HTML. Let me just give a router link again. Router link is equals to slash and add new product. Make sure you are just adding the slash. Now let me just come back to the Google Chrome. Let me just click on add new product, or before that let me just start my application, because previously I stopped it. So let me just start my application. So let me just use npm run start, and let me just wait till my application starts. And then hopefully when my application starts, then when we click on the add new product button, then we will be able to see the default message that we get for any component. So now let me just click on the add new product, and still it's not working. Let me just click on home, or before that let me just refresh the application, and now let me just click on add new product, and yes, it is working. Now we are able to see the message like add new product works. When I click on home, then we are able to see this message like this is the home page. Now we have to modify these text, and inside this component, inside this HTML file, we have to add a form. Let me just quickly go back to the VS Code, but before adding the form, what we have to make sure is we are applying the constraints on these links. So if you see these add new product, so when I click on logout, so this second navigation bar also visible. So this second navigation bar, we don't have to make it visible if user is logged out. So we don't want to show when user is logged out. So that is the very first thing. Then when I click on login, and let's suppose if I'm just using Raj123 and Raj @123. So this is a normal user who don't have the admin access, and let me just click on login. So even if the user is logged in, then also we are showing these links, that is add new product, which is not correct. So we don't want to show these links for the user, so we have to add these two different constraints. So now first of all let's add those constraints, and then only we will move forward. So let me just come back to the VS Code, and let me just go to my services, and if you see, we have one service which is called as a user auth service. previously we have added multiple methods inside this user auth service. So if you see, like we have added these get roles and set roles. Also we have used the get token and set token. Is logged in also we have created. Similarly, let me just add one more method, which is public is admin. So this method, what it basically do is, it will basically check whether my current user is admin or normal user. If it's admin user, then it will return true, otherwise it will return a false. So let me just write the body for these. So first of all, what we are going to do is, we are going to get all the roles which are logged in. So if you see, like previously we have created one function which is a get roles. So this get roles function returns us like whatever the roles we have stored inside our local storage. So it basically returns us those roles. So these roles are nothing but this role is nothing but the role which is currently logged in. So it might return you the admin or user depending upon who is logged into the system. Now let me just store it inside one variable. So let me just make it as a const roles like this, and that roles is going to be a array of any. So as of now I'm just using the type as any, but maybe you can just create any model as well, but I don't think like as of now we require that model, because I want to focus on functionality first, and then maybe in some time we will create the model as well. Now what we have to do is, we have to first of all use console.log. Let's see how our roles are stored, and let me just use it as a roles. So first of all, we need to see like how our roles are stored, and then depending upon that we can write the condition. Now we have created this isAdmin function. Now we have to copy that isAdmin function. So let me just go to the header.component.ts file. Inside this we have already injected this user auth service. So inside this, what we have to do is, we have to create one new function, public, and let me just give the same name as isAdmin, and let me just call this function which function that we have just created. So let me just call it as a this.user.auth-service.isAdmin like this. And now let me just copy this function name isAdmin, and now let me just go to the header.component.html. and now what we have to do is, we have to just make sure like this particular second button, which is a add new product button, we have to just make sure that this is only visible to the admin user. So let me just use is equals to, and now let me just call this function isAdmin. As of now, obviously we haven't wrote any body inside this isAdmin, so that's the reason it is not going to work. But on the console we are going to see like in which format our roles are stored, so that we can, depending upon like its structure, we can write our condition. So that's the reason I'm just calling the function. And if you see, like inside the user auth service, we are just first of all using the console.log roles. Now let me just go back to the Google Chrome. Let me just do one thing. Let me just make it as let me just first of all open the console, and now let me just refresh the application. Now if you see on the console, we are printing something. So let me just open this array, and now if you see inside this array, we have only one element which is present at 0th index, and at the 0th index we have one object. That object contains two different values. First one is a role name, and second one is a role description. So for the role name, for the user, it is a user with a capital U, and for the admin, it will be a admin with a capital A. So like we got this structure. So we have only one element which is present at the 0th index. Inside the 0th index, we have the role name and role description. So basically we can check this role name only. We don't have to worry about the role description. So we can just check whether that role name is admin. If it's admin, then we will return true from our function. If it's not, we will return a false. So let's see how we can do this. Now let me just come back to the VS Code, and let me just come back to the user auth service.ts file. Inside these, let me just remove this console.log. So instead what we can just do is roles, 0th index of roles dot role name with a capital N equal to triple equals to, if it's admin then it will return. So by default we have to just return whatever this condition will return. So if this condition returns true, then we have to return it as it is. If this condition returns a false, then also we have to return it as it is. Now similarly we have to create one more function for is user. So let me create it quickly. So let me just create is user, and also this function is going to return us true if the user is logged in, otherwise it is going to return us a false if like user is not logged in. So let me just click on the save button, and now our auth functions are created and everything seems perfectly fine. Let me just close this file. Let me just go back to the header.component.ts file, and over here what we have to do is inside this isAdmin function we have to add this return keyword, and now similarly we have to create one more function is user. Now again, just whenever you are writing the code, just make sure that I am using these same names like isAdmin inside this header.component.ts file, and also inside my user auth service I have used the same name. So don't need to confuse in these names. So you can just focus on the class name alongside. If you are following me, just focus on the class names, like in which class, in which file I am writing the code. So that's the reason whenever I switch between the files, I tell you clearly which file I am using currently. So currently let me just return this dot user auth service dot is user like this, and now let me just save this file. Now let me just go to the header.component.html and let me just do one thing like yes. So over here we have already used the isAdmin. So if you see, like we have already used a isAdmin. Now the next thing is this toolbar we have to show only when user or any user like admin or any user is logged in. So if someone is logged in, then only we are going to show this toolbar. So for this again we have to apply one condition. Now previously we have created one function which is logged in, so you can just call the same function. So this basically returns us a true whether any user is like any user or any admin, anyone if is logged in into our system, then it returns true, otherwise it returns false. So let me just copy this function name and let me just paste it for star ng if is equals to, and let me just call this is logged in function. Now let me just save this code. Let me just come back to the Google Chrome, and now everything should work as expected. And now let me just refresh these. It's not working, so let me just first of all see what happened. So over here if you see, like we have used the is logged in, and then we have used a isAdmin. Now let me just restart the application first of all. So let me just make npm run start, and let's see whether we are able to get the expected output or not. So if you are not able to get the expected output, then we will see like what is going wrong there. So we will try with the debugging. So now let me just come back to the Google Chrome. Let me just first of all click on logout, and now when we click on logout, if you see that navigation bar disappears, the secondary navigation bar. Let me click on login again. Now if you see, like when I log in with the admin, so admin @pass, then we are able to see this home and add a new product as well, and everything is working perfectly fine. Let me just click on logout, then again secondary navigation bar disappears. Let me just click on login again, and this time let me just log in with the Raj, which is our normal user. And if you see for the Raj, we are not showing this add new product link, we are just showing the home link. So everything is working perfectly fine and as expected. Now let me just log in back with the admin, and let me just now add the form. So now let me just click on the add a new product, and this on this component we have to create a form. So quickly let me just go back to the VS Code and let me just close all the files which are currently in open state. And now let me just come back to the add new product component. Inside the add new product, let me just go to the add new product.component.html. Let me remove these message, and first of all let me just use one class that is called as a container. So let me just use dot container. So it is a shortcut inside a VS Code. So whenever we have to create any div tag with some specific class applied to it, then what we have to do is we have to just give this dot and a class name, and then we have to hit the enter. Then in this way it is going to create one division and it is going to apply that particular class. So this is the shortcut that we basically can use. And again, inside this container, let me just give some dummy text. So again, if you just want to give some dummy text, then what we can just do is we can just type it as a lorem, and let me just hit the enter. So it is going to give you some lorem ipsum dummy text. Now let me just come back to the Google Chrome, and if you see, like, we are able to see this text, and some margin is also applied from left and right hand side. Again, we have to apply some from top side as well. So let me just apply some classes. So whatever the classes like container and whatever the classes, like I'm just going to use empty-5 class. So these are the classes which are given by the Bootstrap. So we are using the Bootstrap classes, and we have already installed the Bootstrap. So that's the reason we are able to access the Bootstrap classes. Now from the top as well, we have given some margin. Now what I just want to do is I just want to create one card, and all the text which currently we are showing, I just want to show that text inside a card. So let me just come back to the VS Code. Let me first of all remove this text, and let me just create one more division with a class called as a card. And again, this card is basically a Bootstrap class. And now let me just give a lorem inside it, and now let me just save it. Let me just come back, and now if you see, like we are able to see these lorem ipsum text. And if you see, like we got the card as well. Like if you see all the four sides, like there is one small rectangle, and this is nothing but a card. Now inside this we have to apply some padding as well. So let me just apply some padding. So inside this card, let me just give some padding of 2, maybe p-2. So let me see whether it works or not. And yes, if you see, like the padding is applied from all the four sides. So now it looks pretty good. Let's see now how we can create a form inside it. Let me just remove this lorem ipsum, and to create a form, what we are going to do is we are going to use our Angular material form field. So if you just go back, and if you just go to the Angular material form field, so we have many different examples. So previously we have seen like how we can use this form field for a login form. In a similar way, we have to use it for the product detail form as well. So I basically like this outline form field, so I'm just going to use that again. If you want, you can just use any different thing. And again, if you are using the for very first time, then make sure that you are importing the required modules, and then only you will be able to access these form fields. But for us, like we have already used the form field and we have already imported the required modules, so we don't need to import it again. So let me just quickly click on this view code, and let me just copy the code for outline form field. So whichever form field you like, you can just copy the code for that form field. And let me just copy this code. Let me just come back to the VS Code, and let me just paste this code like this. Now let me just first of all format the code. Yes. And now let me just save this code. Let me just go back to the Google Chrome. Let's see what we are getting. So if you see, like we are getting this form field, and we are getting this whatever form field we are getting, it's too big. Again, I just forgot to mention one thing, like this particular card that we have currently using, we are going to divide that card in a two different section. So we are going to divide that card in middle of it, so that on the left hand side we will keep our form, and on the right hand side we will keep our image area. Like we will create the drag and drop section so that user can drag and drop the images, and also we are going to add the preview section as well, so that we can preview the images. So that section we are going to add at the right hand side. So let me just quickly divide my screen first of all, and then only we will add this. So let me just comment out this form code, and let me just inside my card, let me just first of all create one more division with the class row. Inside this, let me just create one more division with call 6 like this, and let me just copy the same division and let me just paste it like this. Now if you see, we are creating one row. Inside these like Bootstrap basically gives us a 12 different grids. So among those 12 different grids, 6 will be applied for my left hand side, which is basically nothing but a form. 6 will be applied for my right hand side, which will be nothing but a image area. So let me just give one message like image area like this. And now let me just come back to the Google Chrome, and if you see like image area, and if you see the screen is divided into two different sections. Obviously we haven't applied any border and everything to show the exact division, but it's divided into two different sections, and I don't want to show any border. If you want, you can just check out, but I don't want to show any border right now, so I'm just keeping it as it is. Now let me just copy this form field code, and let me just cut this code and let me just paste it inside my first column section. And let me just first of all remove the comment, and now let me just first of all format this code, and yes, now we are able to see in the right way. Now let me just save this code and let's see what happens. Now if you see like we are getting this outlined form field, some of the things we are not required, so we are not be able to see this icon, and we are not going to use the icon as of now, so we are going to remove this, and also we are going to remove this hint. So let me just quickly remove it, and so let me just remove this hint part, and also let me just remove this icon like this. And now let me just save this, and let me just come back to the Google Chrome. And if you see, like we are getting the form field, but that form field is not getting the 100% of the weight, it is getting little bit of the weight, so we have to apply the 100% width. So let me just come back and let me just apply one class that is called as a w-100, which is basically nothing but a width is equals to 100%, and again this is a Bootstrap class. And now if you see, like we are getting these form field with 100% of a width. Let me just come back, and the next thing that we have to do is, again we have to create 4 different form fields. So if you see in the Postman, like we have 4 type of input text. So first one will be name, description, discounted price, and actual price. So we have these 4 fields, and for these 4 values we have to take a 4 different fields on our UI. So let me just quickly do that thing, and let me just quickly copy this mat form field, and basically what we can just do is we can just paste it like this for the 4 times. Now let me just save this, let me just come back to the Google Chrome, and yes, we are getting the 4 different form fields, and now one by one we have to change the properties. So for the very first form field, make sure you are whatever you are applying, you are just applying in a sequential way. So for very first form field, let me just give first of all label as product name, and let me just copy this label and let me just give it as a placeholder like this. Then for the second thing, let me just give it as a product description, and now let me just copy these and let me just give it as a placeholder again. Then third thing that we have to give is a product actual price, and again let me just copy this and let me just give it as a placeholder. And lastly, for the last field, we have to give it as a product discounted price, and let me just copy this product discounted price and let me just give it as a placeholder like this, and let me just save this code. Let me just come back to the Google Chrome, and if you see, like the placeholder and label are working exactly that we are expected. Now also we want two different buttons. So one will be a clear button and second one will be a save button or maybe add product button. So we have to give those buttons as well. So let me just quickly give those two buttons. So let me just give it as a button, and let me just give it as a matte stroked button. So maybe stroked button. Again, I know this class, so that's the reason I'm just applying the class. If you want, you can just check out on Angular material site. Color will be a primary color, and inside between this button tag we have to give a text. So let me just give it text as a add product like this. Similarly, let me just copy this button and let me just paste one more time, and let me just give the text as a clear. So we want one button to clear our form as well. So let me just give it for a clear. Now let me just save this. Let me just go back to the Google Chrome, and if you see, like the classes are not applied. Maybe I have missed something. So let me just come back, and if you see, like I have done some spelling mistake. So let me just make it correctly, matte stroked button, and now let me just save it and let me just come back to the Google Chrome, and this time yes, I am able to see this. Now when you click on this, nothing is happens, but yes, we are going to apply a few changes and we are going to make it workable. Now these two buttons I just want to take it on at the end. So let me just do that as well. So for these two buttons, let me create one division. So let me just create one division, and let me just make it as align is equals to end like this, and inside this division let me just paste these two buttons. Now let me just save it. Let's see what happens, and yes, we are getting these two buttons at the end. Now again, what we have left is we have to give a form tag as well. So all the form fields that we are taking, we have to take it inside a form tag. So let me just open the form tag and let me just remove this action. Let me just remove this /form, and after my button, so whenever my division for button ends, then only we have to just paste this /form. Now let me just first of all format these, and now let me just save these changes. Now we have used a form as well. Then the next thing that we have to do is we have to see like how we can collect a data, and also let me just give some margin between these two buttons. So let me just come back to the VS Code, and after my first button, let me just apply some style. Let me just give it as a margin right is equals to maybe a 2 pixel or maybe 3 pixel. Let's see, 3 pixel like this, and yes, 3 pixel is enough. Now the next thing that we have to do is we have to make this form workable, because as of now we have just created a form, but whenever you are entering any values inside a form, or whenever we are clicking on this add product, nothing is happening, right? So we want to make everything workable. So let me just go back to the VS Code, and let me just do one thing. Let me just first of all create a model for this product. So we have to create a model for this product. So let me just come back to these, and let me just do one thing. Let me just create one new folder similar to these underscore auth and underscore services. Let me just create one new folder. It's not a file. Let me just create one new folder. So inside the app, let me just create one new folder, which is a underscore model like this. And then inside this underscore model, let me just create one new file, which will be a product dot model dot ts like this. Inside this product dot model dot ts, we have to do export interface, and let me just make it as a product. and inside the product interface we have to give all the properties. So we have to give, so let me just go to the postman, and we have to give the variable names. Now make sure, like to make all the things easier, make sure like whichever JSON keys that you are using, make sure you are using that JSON keys as your variable names inside or at the UI. So as of now, if you see, I am using this product name, product description, product discounted price, and product actual price, right? So you can just do one thing, like you can just give exactly same as your variable names at the UI end as well. Or in more easier way, if you just go to the IntelliJ, so let me just go to the IntelliJ and let me just open the product class. So let me just open the product class. Now if you see, like we have this product name, product description. So make sure whichever variable names you have used at the back end, exactly same variable names you are using at the front end. So that will make every single thing more easier. So like if you are just giving different variable names or at both backend and UI, then there are few things that we have to take care. But so if you want to just avoid that phase, then we can just use it exactly same. Now let me just copy this product name. Let me just come back to the VS Code and let me just paste it, and let me just give the type as a string. Now let me just give second property, which is a product description. So let me just copy the product description and let me just paste it, and again type will be a string. Then third property is product discounted price. Let me just copy this and let me just give the type as number. And lastly, product actual price, and let me just give it as a product actual price, and let me just give it as a number, like this. As of now, I'm not going to add a product ID, we will see later. Now let me just save this file, and now let me just close this file. Now let me just come back to the add new product dot component dot ts, and inside this ts let me just create one model. So let me just use product, which will be of type product, is equals to, inside the curly brackets we have to give some initial values. So for my product name, I will just keep it as empty. We have to give colon. I will just keep it as empty. Then for my product description, I will again keep it as empty. Then for my product discounted price, I will just give discounted price as a 0 initial value, and product actual price, again I will just make it as a 0, like this. And now let me just save this code. Now this particular product model or product object, we have to bind with our form, and we have to use a two-way binding. So whatever values we will enter inside a form, those values will be reflected inside these variables as well. So if you are aware about the two-way binding, then that's a good. Otherwise we will discuss in a few seconds. So inside this, like let me just come to the very first form field. Inside this we have input tag. Inside this, let me just apply ng model, and that ng model should be like two-way binding. So we have to give it like this. So let me just give it like this, is equals to, then we have to give our object name. So my object name is a product. Let me just copy this object name dot, then we have to give a property name. So my property name is a product name, like this. Let me just copy this product name and let me just paste it. Now similarly, we have to give name is equals to, and again I will just give the name is equals to product name. Similar to this, we have to make ng model for description, actual price, and discounted price. So let me just come back to description now. For the input, let me just apply the ng model, and also we have to give a name. So let me just copy these and let me just paste it. So for the ng model, product dot product description, so let me just copy my property, which is product description, let me just paste it over here, and also for the name attribute, let me just paste it like this. Now let me just copy this ng model and name again, and now let me just come to the actual price, let me paste it, and let me just copy the property name, which is product actual price. So let me just copy the product actual price. Make sure you are copying this correctly. So let me just copy product actual price, and let me just paste it like this. And there should not be any space, so make sure you are, if you are like if there is any space, then remove it. Now let me just copy the ng model and name, and let me just paste it for the discounted price as well. And now let me just come back to the property, and let me just copy this product discounted price, and let me just paste it like this. And now everything seems perfectly fine. Now let me just save this code. The only thing that we have left back is we have to give some additional properties inside the form. So let me just do one thing. Let me just give the name to the form. So always, like whenever we have to give the names to the form or any input fields, then we have to start it with a hash. So just give the name it as hash, and product form is equals to, and this form should be a ng form, so I'm just going to make it as ng form. And then we have to give ng submit, and this ng submit is basically nothing but a event. So that's the reason we have to bind it with the event. We have to bind it inside the curly brackets, is equals to, and inside the double quotes we have to give a name of the function that we want to call. So I just want to call, let's suppose, add product function like this, and then I will pass my form. So let me just pass the product form as a parameter like this, and now let me just save the changes. Now again we are using the ng submit, so we have to make our one button as a type is equals to submit. So let me just come back to the buttons, and for this add product, let me just assign one type is equals to submit like this. So now what is going to happen is, whenever we will click on the button, the Angular will analyze that this button is a submit button. So it will check on the form whether is there any action that it needs to perform whenever someone clicks on submit. And yes, we have clearly mentioned here that whenever someone clicks on submit, then call this function which is add product. Now this function we haven't created, so we have to create that function. So now let me just copy this function name, which is add product, and let me just copy the entire, including the parameter. Let me just copy this, and now let me just come back to the ts file, which is add new product.component.ts file. Inside this, after the ng on init, let me just create this function. This product form is going to be a type of ng form like this. So let me just apply the ng form, and then what we will just do is, first of all we will just do the console.log, and then we will just try to print these product details, whether whichever product details we are entering into a form, whether that are applied on this object or not. So over here, let me just first of all tell you like how it is going to work, and whether we are getting this on our console or not. And if we are getting this on a console, then we will talk further. Let me just come back to the Google Chrome. Let me first of all see whether my application is running or not, and yes, it is running. So now let me just come back to the Google Chrome, and let me just first of all open the console so that we can see all the console messages. Let me just give some values, like product name as let's suppose a TV, product description as a TV, then product actual price, let's suppose 1000 or maybe 10,000, and product's discounted price is a 9,000 like this. Let me click on add product. Now when we click on the add product, we are getting this console, and we are getting all the values like we have entered into our form. So all the values are correct. If you see, like all the values are exactly those values which we have entered into our form. So now we are able to collect all the values successfully. The only thing that we have to do is we have to send these values to our backend. So let's see how we can do this. Now again, let me just first of all tell you what is the two-way binding quickly. So if you see, like if I just come back to the HTML, so add a new product.component.html, we are using a two-way binding. So two-way binding is nothing but, like if you just consider this HTML as a UI, and if you just consider this TS as it's a model, so it is basically called as a view model. So it is, HTML is basically a view or UI, and TS is basically called as a model. Now in sometimes what happens is we want to make the communication between the view and model, or we want to bind some data between the view and model. So if you want to bind, like whichever property you bind with the view model in a two-way bindings. So let's suppose I'm currently doing the product variable or product object, and I am just binding this object with my HTML. So let's suppose if someone makes any changes into this product from the TS file, then these changes will get reflected on the HTML. And also similarly, if someone makes changes into this product from the HTML, the similar changes will also get reflected to the this product which is present into a TS or model. So for example, if you see, if I just initialize this product name as a, let's suppose, Apple TV, like this, and now let me just save this code. Let me just come back to the Google Chrome, and let me just close this console. And whenever you will refresh this page, and whenever this field gets initialized, then if you see, like for very first thing we are getting the Apple TV. So if you see, like what we are doing is we are just giving this Apple TV, we are initializing this Apple TV, and then same property is binded to our HTML file. Now if someone makes changes inside this HTML, if someone makes changes from this HTML, then that same change will get reflected to my TS as well. So this is how this two-way binding basically works. So now let me just remove this, and let me just keep it as it is, as a empty. And now the next thing that we have to do is we have to create a service for our product. Now let me just quickly create a service for our product, and that is going to be a last step hopefully. Now let me just open my terminal. Let me just stop the current execution, and let me just use npm run ng-gs, and then let me just give the folder name. So I just want to create the service inside my services folder. If you see on my left hand side, we have one services folder, and then we have to give a slash, and then we need to specify the name of the service that we want to create. So that service will be, let's suppose, a product service. So we have to just give the name as a product. And now let me just hit the enter and wait for a couple of seconds. And if you see, the service is created. And now let me just close this terminal. Let me just go inside the services folder. Inside this, let me just go to the product.service.ts. And now what we have to do is we have to first of all inject the HTTP client. So let me just inject private HTTP client, which will be of type HTTP client, like this. Now we have to create a function so that we can call this function from our add a new product component. So let me just give the name as add product. This add product is going to take the details of product. So let me just add one parameter which will be of type product, like this. And now we have to just return one observable, return one HTTP call. So let me just return this dot HTTP client dot, and that is going to be a post call. So if you see inside my postman, that is going to be a post call. So that's the reason we have to call dot post. Inside this we have to give the return type. So it is going to return us a product. So we have to give this inside these brackets, and then inside these circular brackets we have to pass the URL, and also we have to pass the body. So let me first of all pass the URL. So let me just copy this URL, which is like a localhost :9090 / add new product. So let me just paste this URL, and before that let me just give http:// like this, and after the URL we have to give a body. So my body is nothing but the object that I will receive from the like component like this, and now let me just give the semi-comma at the end. Now our service is ready. Let me just close the service file. Let me just come back to the add new product.component.ts. Now the service that we have just created, we have to just inject that service. So let me just make it as a product service, which will be of type product service, which will be of type product service like this. And now inside my add product function, we have to just call that product service dot add product, and then we have to pass the object. So we have to pass this dot product, so this particular object that we want to pass. So let me just pass this dot product, and then we have to call a subscribe, because it is going to return us a observable, and that's the reason we have to call a subscribe. Inside the subscribe we can call two different callback functions. So one will get executed for whenever we will get any response, and then second one will be get executed when if at all we get any error. So now let me just hit the enter inside these brackets. Let me just make it as a response, and that response is going to be of type of product, because if you see, like inside my service we have clearly said that it is going to return us a response of type product. So that's the reason I'm just going to give the type as a product is equals to, then this greater than symbol, and then we have to give the curly brackets inside these. Like let me just console.log like whatever response we will get. So first of all let me just console.log, then after the response let me just give a comma, and let me just call error, and that error will be of type http error response, and then let me just quickly do console.log error like this. Now let me just save these changes, and let me just see what we are getting exactly. So let me open my console, and let me first of all start my application. Let me just do npm run start, and let me wait till my application starts, and hopefully like whenever now my application gets started, and whenever we will fill any information inside my form, and whenever we will click on the add button, it should add all the data inside my DB. So now let's see, let me just add iPhone 7, then let me just add the description as Apple's phone. Actual price should be, let's suppose, 12,000, and the discounted price is 11,000 like this. And let me just click on add product, and now if you see like add whenever we will click on the add product, we are getting these details, but I think I'm not getting any response. That's the reason, because I haven't refreshed this screen. So let me refresh these, and let me just now again fill the information, which is iPhone 7, then Apple's iPhone, then 12,000, 11,000 like these, all the values, and let me just click on add product, and now let's see. Yes, now this time I'm getting the expected response. So if you see, like I'm getting the product ID as well. So product ID 2, I haven't added the product ID via my form. This product ID is basically generated behind the scenes by the database itself. So if you are getting the product ID, then that means your information is saved inside your DB. So now let me just select star from product. Let's see whether information is stored or not, and yes, if you see, like information is stored. So this first entry is basically I have done previously. So for the iPhone 7, yes, the information is stored pretty correctly. Now only thing that we have left back, Let's suppose if at all we get all the responses, and if everything seems working perfectly fine, then we have to make sure that we are clearing out these values, so that like all the form again, all the form is again, we can fill new values inside it. So let me just come back to the VS Code, and let me just do remove this console.log from here, and let me just remove product form, which we are taking as a parameter here, and let me just make it as a reset. Let me just call the function that is called as a reset. And now let me just save this code. Let me just come back to the Google Chrome, and let's see. So now let me just maybe make it as a Samsung, maybe Galaxy. Then over here let me just add the description as Samsung phone. Then price will be, let's suppose, 10,000, and discounted price is 9,000. Let me click on add product, and now if you see, like, my product is added into a database, and form is also like values are also vanished. If I just go back to the MySQL, if I just do select star from again, then we are able to see these value which we have just added through our form. So this is how we can create a form inside our Angular. And also we can we have done a lot of different things which are related to this navigation and everything. So just follow all these instructions that I have provided inside a video. If you still have any questions, let me know into a comment section. I will try my best to help you out in that case. And also in the upcoming sessions, we will see how we can add the image area on the right hand side. So make sure you are just following every single thing. And if you still have any doubts, let me know. I will just try my best to help you out in that case. So I hope you enjoyed this session, and I will see you in the next session.